I was 68 years old the night my daughter slapped me across the face in front of 250 people at her wedding, because I would not hand her my luxury $840,000 penthouse like it was a party favor. For a second, the ballroom at the Bayshore Grand in Tampa went quiet. The band stopped mid-note. The microphone in my hand squeaked with feedback. Every conversation froze in mid-sentence as glasses hung in mid-air and phones tilted toward us like little glowing eyes, all pointed at my face. Kelly's hand had left a perfect red print on my right cheek. My ears rang. Someone near the head table let out a little gasp that turned into nervous laughter, and then more of it rippled through the crowd like a wave I could not stop. I did not cry. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment and tell me where in the world you are watching this from and what time it is right now. Are you listening while you cook dinner? While you drive to work? I want to know who is out there hearing my story. And if this resonates with you, if you have ever felt used by someone you loved, hit that like button and subscribe. You might be surprised where this story goes. Now, back to that ballroom. I stood there with the taste of champagne turning metallic on my tongue. My cheek burned. 250 pairs of eyes pressed down on me, and I thought about the strangest things. I thought about the penthouse on the 22nd floor that I had bought after my husband died, the one they all talked about like it was a family vacation home instead of my safeguard for old age. I thought about how many years I worked double shifts at Tampa General to qualify for that mortgage in the first place. And I thought about the woman sitting 2 tables back, adjusting her tie, watching with an expression that was suddenly very sharp. Judge Linda Graves. Family court. Elder cases. A woman I had seen on the local news more times than I could count, now staring at my daughter like she had just stepped into a case file. Kelly hissed into the microphone, eyes blazing, her voice carrying to every corner of that enormous room. "You are really going to embarrass me like this, Mom? On my wedding day? After everything I have done for you?" Everything she had done for me. That almost made me laugh, except my mouth tasted like blood where my teeth had caught the inside of my cheek. The DJ's assistant hovered near us, unsure whether to grab the mic or pretend nothing was happening. Bridesmaids shifted in their matching rose gowns, pretending to fix their hair while they watched. At the back, my bridge group from the condo association stared, mouths open, forks still halfway to their plates. I could see phones recording, little red dots, little lights, every angle covered, every second captured. Kelly was still talking, her voice getting louder, more shrill. "This is who raised me, everybody. This is the woman who would rather hoard her fancy condo than help her own daughter start a family. My own mother, on my wedding day." Her face was twisted in a way I had only glimpsed a few times before, always quickly hidden behind apologies or tears. But tonight, there were no apologies. Tonight, she wanted everyone to see her rage. I straightened my spine. I set the microphone gently on the table beside the untouched wedding cake, the one with sugar flowers that cost more than my first car. The DJ looked at me with a mixture of relief and confusion, like he wanted permission to start the music again and drown out whatever was happening. I gave him a small nod. Then I walked off the stage. No dramatics, no shouting, no scenes. Just a quiet exit, my heels clicking on the polished wood floor, while my only child stood at the center of her own reception, breathing hard, fingers still curled from the slap. The music started up again, too loud, too fast, like someone had hit the wrong button. A few people clapped uncertainly. Someone raised a glass and shouted something about love and marriage, trying to salvage the moment. The crowd slowly unstuck itself, conversations resuming in low, shocked murmurs. But I kept walking. That was the moment something in me finally snapped into place. People like to act surprised when these moments happen, as if a family explodes in one night for no reason at all, as if years of small compromises and ignored warning signs do not add up to anything, as if love and blood are shields against cruelty. That is never how it works. My name is Margaret Langley. I spent 40 years as a nurse, most of it in the same hospital. I married my high school sweetheart, Frank, when I was 19. We had one daughter, Kelly. We lived in a plain little ranch house in Brandon, drove used cars, and watched every coupon like it was made of gold, because that was what you did when money was tight and the future felt uncertain. When Frank died of a stroke 12 years ago, the life insurance and my retirement plan were all I had. A friend from work suggested I talk to a realtor about investing in something solid instead of letting the money sit in an account where inflation would chip away at it year after year. That is how I ended up in a bare concrete shell on the 22nd floor of a new tower overlooking Tampa Bay, listening to a young agent with perfect teeth tell me that in 10 years the place would be worth a fortune. It is listed now at 410, she said, gesturing toward the unfinished windows where the bay stretched out like a promise. Give it some time, and this will be an $800,000 view, easy. I bought that penthouse with my hands still smelling faintly of hospital soap. I kept working until I was 65 so I could finish paying it off. I painted the walls myself. I picked every piece of furniture slowly, room by room, as overtime hours turned into down payments on sofas and bookshelves. It was the first thing in my life that was entirely mine. And Kelly knew it. She used to come over and throw her purse down on the couch, turning in a slow circle like she was already calculating where she would put her own things. Back then she would say it jokingly, laughing as if the idea was absurd. "Mom, this place is way too big for you. You should let me and Travis live here when we have kids. You can move into a little condo somewhere with your knitting and your book club." She said it like a joke, but every time she said it, the idea dug in a little deeper, like a seed planted in soil she thought I would not notice. Now, standing in that hallway outside the ballroom with my cheeks still throbbing and my heart strangely steady, I reached into my purse for a tissue. My fingers brushed against the small envelope that held my speech, the one I had written days ago about Kelly's first steps and how proud her father would have been. I never said any of it. My legs started to shake. I leaned against a marble column, pressing my palm to my burning cheek, trying to steady my breath. Inside, the music played on. Laughter floated out through the heavy doors. Someone clinked a glass. Someone else shouted for the bride and groom to kiss. Life went on as if nothing had happened. "Miss Langley." I looked up. Judge Linda Graves stood a few feet away, her heels gleaming on the polished floor, a small clutch purse at her side. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp, the kind of sharp that came from years of seeing things other people wanted to ignore. "I hope you do not mind me speaking to you," she said quietly. "I am Linda. We have never met, but I know your old boss at the hospital." Of course she did. Tampa was a small world when you stayed in one place long enough. "I am all right," I said automatically, the reflex so familiar it hurt. Her eyes dropped briefly to my cheek, where I knew the mark was still bright red. "No," she said gently. "You are not." What Judge Graves did not know, standing there in that hallway with her card already in hand, was how much that penthouse had cost me in ways that had nothing to do with money. Let me take you back. Frank and I met in 10th grade biology class. He sat behind me and kept flicking tiny paper footballs at my neck until I turned around and told him if he did it one more time, I would report him to the teacher. He grinned at me like I had just issued a challenge, and that was it. We were inseparable after that. We got married the summer after graduation, both of us 19 and convinced we had the world figured out. We did not, but we learned together. Frank worked at a shipping warehouse during the day and took night classes to become a supervisor. I went straight into nursing school because my mother had been a nurse, and I knew the work was steady, even if it was hard. Kelly came along when I was 22. She was a fussy baby, colicky and loud, but Frank would walk her around the house at 3 in the morning, singing old country songs until she finally settled. Those were good years, even when we were too tired to see straight, even when the bills piled up and the car broke down and we ate spaghetti 4 nights a week because it was cheap. We saved what we could. We talked about buying a bigger house someday, maybe taking a real vacation, maybe retiring somewhere warm. Someday. Frank's stroke happened on a Tuesday morning. He was 56 years old, pulling on his work boots in the kitchen, and then he was on the floor, one side of his face slack, his hand reaching for me but not quite making it. The ambulance came. The hospital tried, but the damage was done. He died 3 days later without waking up. I sat beside his bed the whole time, holding his hand, talking to him about nothing and everything. I told him about Kelly's new job. I told him about the neighbor's dog that kept digging up our yard. I told him I was sorry we never made it to the Grand Canyon like we always said we would. He never answered. After the funeral, the house felt too big and too small at the same time. Every room had Frank in it. His coffee mug by the sink, his jacket on the hook. His reading glasses on the side table, still folded the way he always left them. I kept working because I did not know what else to do. Grief is strange that way. You think it will swallow you whole, but instead you just keep going, one foot in front of the other, because stopping feels worse. The life insurance payout came 6 weeks later, $60,000. My retirement account had another $150 saved up over the years. It felt like a fortune and like nothing at all, both at once. One of the other nurses, a woman named Diane who had worked the night shift with me for years, pulled me aside one evening in the break room. "Margie," she said, "you need to do something smart with that money. Do not just let it sit in a savings account. Put it somewhere it can grow." I told her I did not know the first thing about investing. "Then talk to someone who does," she said. "My sister is a realtor. She helped her clients buy property all over Tampa. Let me give you her number." At first I dismissed the idea. I was 56 years old. Who buys their first real property at 56? But the thought kept circling back. The money sitting in the bank felt fragile, like it could disappear if I blinked. At least a home was solid, real. I called the realtor. Her name was Patricia, and she had the kind of energy that made you feel like everything was possible if you just signed on the right line. She showed me 3 places. 2 were older condos near the water, nice enough but nothing special. The 3rd was the tower. It was still under construction when we walked through. There were no walls yet, just studs and concrete and the skeleton of what would become balconies. Workers shouted to each other in Spanish. Dust hung in the air. The elevator rattled like it might give up halfway. But when we stepped out onto the 22nd floor and Patricia gestured toward the open space where the windows would go, I saw it. The bay stretched out forever. The water was blue and endless. Boats drifted past like toys. The sky went on, bigger than anything I had seen from our little ranch house with its chain-link fence and patchy grass. "This is the last unit available on this floor," Patricia said. $410,000. I know it sounds like a lot, but in 10 years, maybe 15, you will be sitting on something worth twice that, maybe more. This is Tampa's future, Margie. You get in now or you watch from the sidelines. I thought about Frank. I thought about all the times we talked about someday and never got there. I thought about spending the next 20 or 30 years in that house where every corner reminded me of what I had lost. And I thought about being old and alone and dependent on someone else's kindness. "How does this work?" I asked. Patricia smiled. "You put down what you can. You get a mortgage for the rest. You keep working, you make the payments, and one day it is all yours." The paperwork terrified me. I had never signed anything that big in my life. My hands shook as I wrote my name on page after page, Frank's life insurance turning into numbers on a screen, my future hinging on whether I could keep up with a mortgage payment that felt impossible. But I did it. The tower finished construction 2 years later. I moved in on a Saturday in July, the movers hauling boxes up 22 floors while I stood in the empty living room trying to convince myself I had not made a terrible mistake. The walls were builder white. The floors were plain. The view was everything Patricia promised, but the rest of it felt cold and unfinished, like a hotel room no one had bothered to decorate yet. So I decorated it myself. I worked every extra shift the hospital would give me. I painted the bedroom a soft gray. I found a couch on sale at a furniture outlet and paid for it in installments. I bought curtains, lamps, a dining table, bookshelves. Piece by piece, the penthouse became mine. It took 3 more years to pay off the mortgage entirely. 3 years of overtime and skipped vacations and dinners at home instead of restaurants. But the day I made that final payment, I sat on my couch with the deed in my hands and cried until I had no tears left. This was not just a place to live. This was my safety, My cushion, the thing that would keep me from being a burden to anyone when I got too old to work, too tired to fight, too worn down to keep going. Kelly came to visit a few weeks after I finished the last room. She walked in, set her purse on the kitchen counter, and turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "Wow, Mom," she said. "This place is really something." I felt a small flicker of pride. "Thank you, sweetheart. It took a while, but I think it turned out nice." She wandered over to the balcony doors, looking out at the water, her reflection ghosting against the glass. "You know," she said, her voice light, almost teasing, "this place is way too big for you. You should let me and Travis live here when we have kids. You could move into a little condo somewhere quieter, somewhere with your book club and your knitting." She laughed like it was the most natural suggestion in the world. And I laughed too, because I thought she was joking. But the way she looked at the view, the way her fingers traced the edge of the granite countertop, the way she glanced back at me with just a little too much hope in her eyes, that should have been my first warning. I should have paid attention to that warning. But mothers have a gift for explaining away the things they do not want to see. Kelly was 24 when she wrecked her first car. She called me at 2 a.m, crying so hard I could barely understand her. She had run a red light and hit a pole. The car was totaled. She was fine, thank God, but the insurance would not cover the full replacement because she had let the policy lapse. "Mom, I cannot get to work without a car," she sobbed. "I will lose my job. Please, I will pay you back, I promise." I wrote the check the next day. $12,000 for a used Honda that she swore would last her years. She never paid me back. After a few months, she stopped mentioning it altogether, and I stopped bringing it up because I did not want to seem petty. She was my daughter. Frank would have helped her. What kind of mother keeps a ledger against her own child? A year later, it was college debt. She had gone to community college for a while, then dropped out, then went back, then dropped out again. Each time she promised this was it. This was the degree that would change everything. Each time I helped with tuition, books, fees. The debt never went away. It just shifted. Student loans turned into credit card bills. She had gotten herself into a hole buying things she said she needed for work, for interviews, for networking events. Designer clothes, a new laptop, dinners with people who might give her a better job someday. "I am trying to invest in my future." "Mom," she said when I asked why the balance was so high, "you have to spend money to make money. Everyone knows that." I paid off $8,000 in credit card debt, then another $6,000 the following year. By the time she moved in with Travis, I had stopped counting. Travis seemed nice enough at first. Polite, steady job in sales. He called me ma'am and brought flowers when they came for dinner. But within 6 months of them living together, the calls started coming. Rent was late. The landlord was threatening eviction. Travis's commission check had not come through yet. Could I just cover them this one time until they got back on their feet? One time turned into 3 times. 3 times turned into a pattern I pretended not to notice. Frank used to say that if you rescue someone every time they stumble, they never learn to watch where they are walking. I heard his voice in my head every time I transferred money into Kelly's account. But I did it anyway. "She is young," I told myself. "She will figure it out. She just needs a little more time." I kept working extra shifts to cover what I was losing. I told myself the penthouse was safe. The penthouse was the line I would never cross. Everything else, fine, but not that. The engagement happened on a Sunday in March. Kelly showed up at my door without warning, waving her left hand in my face before I even got the door fully open. "Look, look, look!" she squealed, practically bouncing. "Travis proposed last night. We are getting married, Mom." The ring was big. Too big for someone who could not pay rent 3 months ago. But I smiled and hugged her and told her I was happy, because that is what you do. She came inside and dumped a stack of bridal magazines on my kitchen table, talking a mile a minute about venues and dresses and photographers. She had already been researching. She had Pinterest boards. She had a vision. "There is this place on the water," she said, flipping through her phone to show me pictures. "The Bayshore Grand. It is perfect, Mom. Absolutely perfect. But the deposit is kind of intense." I felt my stomach tighten. "How intense?" 30,000, she said quickly, like saying it fast would make it smaller. But you always said you wanted my wedding to be special. You only get one daughter, right? And Dad would have wanted me to have something beautiful. There it was, the invocation of Frank, as if his ghost was sitting at the table nodding along, agreeing that, yes, of course, we should empty the bank account for a 6-hour party. I hesitated. I thought about saying no. I thought about suggesting something smaller, something reasonable, something that did not require me to drain my emergency fund. But Kelly's face was so bright, so hopeful. And I remembered being young and engaged and dreaming about a wedding that felt like magic, even though Frank and I got married at the courthouse with 2 witnesses and dinner at a diner afterward. I wrote the check. Then came the dress. $4,000 for something she would wear once. Then the flowers. Then the photographer she absolutely had to have because he shot all the weddings that went viral on social media. Then the cake, the band, the decorations, the bridesmaid gifts. Every time I hesitated, her face fell in that particular way she had perfected over the years, the expression that said I was disappointing her, that I was choosing money over her happiness, that I was failing as a mother. "Do you not want your grandchildren to have nice photos to look back on?" she said once, her hand resting on her flat stomach like the idea of future children was a bargaining chip. "You only get one wedding, Mom. Do you not want my day to be magical?" My day, her day, my bank account. I kept telling myself it was fine. The penthouse was still there. The penthouse was still mine. As long as I had that, I could rebuild whatever I spent. I just needed to hold the line on that one thing. But Kelly had other plans. 3 months before the wedding, she invited me to dinner. Some trendy restaurant in Hyde Park, where the menus did not have prices and everything came on plates too small to satisfy anyone. The kind of place that charged $20 for 3 asparagus spears and called it art. She waited until the server left with our order, then leaned forward with her hands folded on the table, her engagement ring catching the low light. "I have been thinking," she said, her voice careful, rehearsed, "about a way you could really help us start our life together." I already knew what she was going to say. I could feel it coming like a storm you smell in the air before the first drop of rain falls. "The answer is no," I said before she could finish. Her smile froze, her eyes went sharp. "You did not even hear the question." "Yes," I said quietly. "I did." Kelly's jaw tightened. The carefully arranged sweetness on her face cracked just enough for me to see what was underneath. "You want the penthouse?" I said, keeping my voice level. "You want me to sign it over to you and Travis as a wedding gift, or you want me to sell it and give you the money so you can buy something for yourselves?" She sat back in her chair, arms crossing. "Well, since you already decided to be difficult about it, yes, that is exactly what I am asking." The server returned with our appetizers, small plates of something green and artfully arranged. She set them down with a smile and disappeared before the tension at our table could swallow her whole. Kelly picked up her fork, stabbing at a piece of arugula like it had personally offended her. "Mom, you are almost 70 years old," she said, her tone shifting into something that sounded reasonable, practiced. "Do you really need 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and all that space? It is just you." Meanwhile, Travis and I are crammed into a 1-bedroom apartment next to the interstate where we can hear trucks all night long. We want to start a family. We need room. We need a yard, a pool, space for kids to grow up. "Then buy a house," I said. "With what?" she snapped. "Do you know what houses cost now? We are doing everything we can just to stay afloat." "But you are sitting on almost $1 million in real estate that you do not even use. You could sell that place, buy yourself a cute little condo somewhere quieter, and still have plenty left over. Or better yet, just sign it over to us and come live with us. We will take care of you. It is a win for everyone." A win for everyone. That phrase sat heavy in the air between us. "It is not a win for me," I said. "That penthouse is my security. It is the only thing standing between me and being completely dependent on someone else when I cannot work anymore." Kelly rolled her eyes. Literally rolled them, like I was a child throwing a tantrum over something silly. "You have your pension, Mom. You have Social Security. You act like you are one bad day away from living in a cardboard box. It is so dramatic. Dramatic. That word stung more than it should have. You have never worked 5 double shifts in a row during flu season, I said quietly. You have never had to choose between fixing the car and paying the electric bill. You have never been 68 years old and alone and wondering what happens if you get sick and cannot take care of yourself. That is exactly my point, Kelly said, leaning forward, her voice taking on that false warmth again, like she was explaining something simple to someone slow. You would not have to worry about any of that if you just let us help. We will make sure you are taken care of. You will never be alone. Is that not what family is for? I looked at her across that table with its tiny, expensive plates and its dim lighting meant to hide how little food you were actually getting, and I tried to find my daughter in there somewhere. The little girl who used to curl up next to me on the couch. The teenager who cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. The young woman I thought I was raising to be strong and independent. I could not find her. No, I said. I am not signing over my home. Your father and I worked too hard for it. That place is mine, and I am keeping it. Her face changed. The mask dropped completely. Her eyes went cold in a way that made her look older, harder, like someone I did not recognize at all. So you are going to hoard it, she said flatly. You are going to keep all that space for yourself and let your own daughter struggle. That is the kind of mother you want to be. I paid for your car, I said, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. I paid your tuition. I paid off your credit cards. I paid for your rent more times than I can count. I am paying for this wedding, Kelly. The venue, the dress, the flowers, everything you asked for. I am allowed to keep one thing that is mine. She threw her napkin on the table. Unbelievable, she muttered. I should have known. You have always been like this. The second anyone asks you for something real, something that actually matters, you shut down. You act so generous, but it is all just for show. Deep down, you only care about yourself. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, exactly. Just crack, like ice on a pond that has been holding weight for too long. I think we should finish this dinner and go home, I said. Kelly stood up, grabbing her purse. Do not bother. I will get an Uber. Enjoy your appetizer, Mom. Hope it is worth it. She walked out without looking back. Other diners glanced over, then quickly looked away, pretending they had not just witnessed a daughter abandoning her mother in the middle of a restaurant. I sat there alone, with 2 plates of greens and a glass of wine I no longer wanted. The server came back, looking uncomfortable, and I told her to bring the check. I paid for both meals. Of course I did. The next 2 weeks were silent. No calls, no texts. I told myself it was fine, that she needed time to cool off, that she would come around once she realized I was not going to change my mind. Then, out of nowhere, she called. Her voice was bright, cheerful, like nothing had happened. Mom, I need your opinion. We are deciding between vanilla buttercream and lemon for the cake. Which do you think Grandma would have liked better? I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, completely thrown. Vanilla, I think, I managed. Perfect. That is what I was leaning toward, too. Oh, and I need you to look at the seating chart. I sent it to your email. Let me know if you see any issues. She talked for 20 minutes about napkin colors and playlist choices and which cousin was mad they were not in the bridal party. Not one word about the penthouse. Not one word about the fight. I let myself relax. I told myself she had understood. She had processed it and moved on. Maybe she had even talked to Travis and realized they could make things work without taking everything I owned. I wanted to believe it. So I did. The wedding day came faster than I expected. I woke up that morning in my penthouse, looking out at the bay, feeling something that almost resembled peace. Maybe we really were going to be okay. Maybe we could get through this. The ceremony was beautiful. Kelly looked stunning in her dress, walking down the aisle while everyone stood and cried happy tears. Travis looked nervous and proud. The vows were sweet. The kiss got applause. I sat in the front row and tried not to think about how much it all cost. Afterward, during the cocktail hour before the reception, one of the bridesmaids found me by the shrimp table. "Mrs. Langley?" she said, smiling politely. "Kelly asked me to grab you. She wants to do a quick family chat before we all head into the ballroom." My stomach tightened. "A chat about what?" "Oh, I do not know," the girl said, still smiling. "She just said it would only take a minute. There is a little conference room just off the main hall. Everyone is waiting." Everyone is waiting. I should have said no. I should have told that bridesmaid I would see my daughter inside with everyone else. I should have trusted the tight feeling in my gut that told me nothing good was waiting in that room. But old habits are hard to break. I followed her. The conference room was small, windowless, tucked away behind the main ballroom like a secret the venue did not advertise. The kind of space meant for vendors to count tips or brides to fix makeup emergencies in private. Kelly stood in the center, still in her wedding gown. The train pooled around her feet like spilled milk. Travis hovered at her side, his tie already loosened, his face carefully blank in the way people look when they know something uncomfortable is about to happen and they have decided not to stop it. My sister Janice leaned against the far wall, arms folded, watching me walk in with an expression I knew too well. The same look she used to give me when we were kids, and she was waiting to see if I would tattle on her for something. Expectant, almost amused. The bridesmaid who brought me here slipped out quickly, pulling the door shut behind her with a soft click. The sound of that door closing felt louder than it should have. "Mom," Kelly said, her voice sugary sweet, like we were about to discuss flower arrangements. "We need to sync up before we go into the reception." I stayed near the door, my purse clutched a little too tightly in my hands. "Sync up on what?" Kelly exchanged a glance with Travis. He shifted his weight, looking at the floor. Janice examined her nails. "On the announcement," Kelly said, turning back to me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "For our gift, for the penthouse." The air in the room seemed to thicken. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. "What announcement?" Kelly sighed, the kind of sigh that said she was already tired of explaining something obvious to someone slow. "Mom, we already talked about this," she said, her tone shifting into something patient, condescending. "I know you said no when I brought it up at dinner. I get that. You were caught off guard. But this is the perfect moment. You stand up during the toasts, you say something heartfelt about family and new beginnings, and you tell everyone that you are giving us the penthouse as our wedding gift. It will mean the world to us, and honestly, it will make you look incredibly generous in front of everyone out there." I stared at her. My mouth went dry. "You want me to announce, in front of 250 people, that I am giving you my home." "Our home," Travis corrected quietly, then flinched when I looked at him. Kelly stepped closer, her gown rustling. "Mom, think about it. Everyone is already here. All our friends, all our family, people from Travis's work. This is the moment. You get up there, you make the announcement, everyone cheers. We look like the luckiest couple in the world, and you look like the most amazing mother. It is perfect." "No," I said. The word came out harder than I intended. Janice's head snapped up. Travis took a step back. Kelly's smile froze in place. "What do you mean, no?" Kelly asked, her voice dropping an octave. "I mean no," I said, louder this time. "I am not doing that. I already told you. I am giving you a check that will cover part of your honeymoon. That is my gift. I am not giving you my home, and I am certainly not announcing it in front of a crowd like some kind of staged performance." Kelly's face twisted. The bride vanished. What stood in front of me now was someone I barely recognized. "So you are really going to do this," she said slowly. "You are really going to embarrass me on my wedding day." "I am not trying to embarrass anyone," I said. "I am just not giving you what you are asking for." Janice pushed off the wall, stepping into the middle of the room like a referee who had been waiting for her cue. "For once in your life, Margie," she said, her voice sharp, "think about someone besides yourself. This is your daughter's wedding, your only daughter. And you are going to stand there and act like some piece of real estate is more important than her happiness?" "I paid for this wedding," I shot back, my voice shaking now. "The venue, the dress, the flowers, the photographer Kelly begged me for. I have given her everything she has asked for. I am allowed to keep one thing that is mine." Kelly laughed. It was a bitter sound, ugly and cold. "You think paying for a wedding makes you a saint?" she said. "You think writing a few checks erases the fact that you are sitting on a fortune while your own daughter is struggling? Do you have any idea how selfish that is?" "Selfish," I repeated, the word tasting like metal in my mouth. "I worked 40 years to afford that place. I painted the walls myself. I picked out every piece of furniture. I paid off the mortgage with overtime shifts that left me so tired I could barely stand. And you think I am selfish for wanting to keep it?" "You do not need it," Kelly hissed. "You are one person in a 3-bedroom penthouse. We are 2 people about to start a family, crammed into an apartment where the ceiling leaks and the neighbors scream at each other all night. But sure, Mom, keep your view, keep your fancy address. Just do not pretend you care about us." Travis cleared his throat. "Maybe we should just drop it for now and enjoy the reception." Kelly whipped around to face him. "Do not tell me to drop it. We talked about this. She was supposed to agree. You said she would agree once she saw how important it was." "I never said that," Travis mumbled, but his voice was weak, defeated. Kelly turned back to me, her eyes blazing. "Here is what is going to happen," she said, her voice low and controlled in a way that scared me more than the yelling. "You are going to walk out there. You are going to sit at your table. And when they call you up for your speech, you are going to do the right thing. You are going to tell everyone that we are starting our lives together in your penthouse and that you could not be happier to give it to us. You are going to make this day perfect, the way you promised." "I never promised that," I said. "You promised me a beautiful wedding," Kelly snapped. "You promised me you would do whatever it took to make me happy." "Well, this is what it takes, Mom. This is your chance. Do not blow it." I looked at my daughter, standing there in thousands of dollars worth of white lace that I had paid for, demanding that I hand over the only security I had left in this world, and something inside me finally hardened into stone. "No," I said. "I am not doing it." Janice threw up her hands. "Unbelievable. You are unbelievable." Kelly's face went pale, then red, then pale again. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Fine," she said, her voice shaking. "Fine. Go out there and sit down and give your boring little speech about nothing. But do not think for 1 second that I am going to forget this. Do not think this does not change everything." She turned away from me, grabbing Travis's arm. "Let's go," she muttered. She made her choice. The 3 of them walked past me toward the door. Janice bumped my shoulder as she went by, hard enough that I stumbled slightly. Nobody apologized. The door opened. Music and laughter poured in from the ballroom. Then it closed again, and I was alone in that small, airless room with my heart pounding and my hands shaking. I stayed there for a long moment, trying to steady myself, trying to breathe. Then I walked out. The reception was already in full swing. Guests filled the tables, drinks in hand, conversations loud and happy. The band played something upbeat. Waiters moved through the crowd with trays of appetizers. I found my seat near the middle of the room, surrounded by neighbors from my building and a retired doctor I used to work with. They smiled at me, asked how I was holding up, told me the ceremony was lovely. I smiled back and said all the right things. But I could feel Kelly's eyes on me from the head table, watching, waiting. The toasts started. Travis's best man told a funny story about college. Janice got up and rambled about how Kelly had always been the star of the family, how she deserved everything good in life, how lucky Travis was to have her. People laughed, people cried, people raised their glasses. Then the DJ's voice crackled over the speakers. "And now, we would like to invite the mother of the bride, Margaret Langley, to say a few words." The crowd turned toward me. Phones came up. The lights seemed brighter suddenly, hotter. At the head table, Kelly squeezed Travis's arm, her face lit with confidence, with certainty. She thought she had won. She thought the pressure of all those eyes, all those witnesses, would force me into surrender. I stood up. I walked to the small stage where the microphone waited. And I knew with absolute clarity that whatever I said next would change everything. I took the microphone. My hand shook slightly, but my voice came out steady. "I am Margaret," I said, looking out at the sea of faces. I am Kelly's mother. I want to wish her and Travis a long and kind life together." I paused, glancing at my daughter. She was staring at me with wide eyes, her body tense, silently urging me to continue with the script she had written in her head. The room was quiet, expectant. Phones were up, recording. People leaned forward in their seats. I took a breath. "And I hope they build a beautiful future filled with love and understanding." That was it. That was all I had to say. Kelly's face shifted. Confusion first, then panic, then something darker. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "And," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade, "my mom has a very special announcement for us. Right, Mom?" A murmur went through the crowd. The band members straightened. Someone near the back whispered something I could not hear. I looked at her, at the desperation barely hidden beneath her smile, at the trap she was trying to spring in front of everyone. "No," I said into the microphone. "I do not." The silence that followed was suffocating. Kelly's smile dropped. She took a step toward the stage, her voice rising, no longer caring who heard. "Mom, stop being shy. Just tell them." I stepped back from the microphone stand. "There is nothing else to tell." Her face contorted. I saw it happening before it happened. The shift from shock to rage, the way her hand came up. The slap landed across my cheek with a sound that seemed to echo off every wall. My head snapped to the side. I tasted blood where my teeth caught the inside of my cheek. My ear rang. The room tilted for just a second. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then, horribly, someone laughed. A nervous, shocked little sound that spread like a disease. More laughter, more whispers. "Oh my God, did she just hit her own mother? Is this part of the speech? Someone is filming this." Kelly grabbed the microphone, her breathing hard, her face flushed. "You selfish old woman," she snarled, her voice amplified for the entire ballroom to hear. "You would rather hoard your fancy condo than help your own daughter start a family. Everybody, this is what I am dealing with. This is who raised me." She gestured at me like I was evidence in a trial, like I was the accused standing in front of a jury. Some people looked away. Some pulled out their phones, recording. Some stared with their mouths open, unsure whether to intervene or pretend this was normal. 2 tables back, Judge Linda Graves sat perfectly still, her expression sharp and focused. She was not recording, she was watching, taking it all in like she was already writing the case file in her head. For most of my life, those words from Kelly would have destroyed me. I would have tried to explain, to defend myself, to apologize for the crime of trying to protect my own future. Not anymore. I thought about the paperwork waiting in my safe at home, the deed with only my name on it, the account statements showing every year it took to pay for that view, every overnight shift, every missed holiday. Every time I came home smelling like disinfectant and exhaustion, I thought about Judge Graves, about the doctors and nurses scattered throughout this room who knew what it meant when a daughter demanded a parent's assets like they were owed birthday presents. I thought about the 250 witnesses Kelly had just handed me. I set the microphone down gently on the table. I nodded once to the DJ, who looked equal parts relieved and terrified, and I walked off the stage. 1 foot in front of the other, back straight, eyes forward. Behind me, the music started up again, too loud, like someone was trying to drown out what had just happened. Glasses clinked. Forced conversations resumed. Someone shouted a toast about love conquering all. I kept walking. I made it to the hallway before my legs started to shake. I leaned against a marble column, pressing my palm to my burning cheek, trying to steady my breathing. The taste of blood was still thick on my tongue. "Miss Langley." I turned. Judge Graves stood a few feet away, her clutch purse in one hand, her expression calm but her eyes blazing with something that looked like controlled fury. "I hope you do not mind me speaking to you," she said quietly. "I am Linda. We have never met, but I know your old boss at the hospital, Dr. Patterson." "Of course she did. Tampa was small when you stayed in one place long enough." "I am all right," I said automatically. Her eyes dropped to my cheek, where I could feel the heat radiating from the mark Kelly's hand had left. "No," she said gently. You are not. And what happened in there is not normal family drama. I see this kind of thing in my courtroom every single week. I swallowed hard. She is my daughter. She is also an adult who just struck you in front of witnesses while publicly demanding your only major asset. Judge Graves replied, her voice low and firm. That is textbook elder financial abuse, even if nobody wants to use those words at holiday dinners. Elder. The word settled over me like a blanket I did not ask for. I do not want her arrested, I said quickly, the reflex so automatic it hurt. She is my child. I am not telling you what to do, the judge said. I am telling you that you have options. You can protect your deed in ways they cannot touch. You can talk to an attorney before anyone hands you paperwork at some family meeting later. You can file a report if they show up at your door demanding that property. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. If you decide you want help, she said, handing it to me, call this number. It is my clerk. She will point you to the right resources. Nobody gets to treat you like a walking checkbook with no consequences, not even someone you gave birth to. My fingers trembled as I took the card. Inside the ballroom, the music swelled. Someone laughed too loudly. Someone else raised a glass and shouted something about forever. Out here, it was quiet. I looked down at the card in my hand. Linda Graves, Family Court, a phone number printed in clean black ink. Thank you, I whispered. She nodded once, then turned and walked back toward the ballroom, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. I stood there alone for a long time, staring at that card, feeling the sting in my cheek and the strange, unexpected steadiness in my heart. Then I left. I did not say goodbye to anyone. I did not stop at the coat check. I walked straight out the front doors of the Bayshore Grand, got in my car, and drove home. The elevator ride up to the 22nd floor felt longer than usual. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and locked it behind me. The penthouse was quiet. The view stretched out dark and glittering through the balcony doors. I made myself a cup of tea, chamomile, the kind Frank used to drink when he could not sleep. Then I went to the dining table and spread out every important paper I owned. Birth certificate, marriage certificate, death certificate, life insurance documents, pension statements, the deed to the penthouse, my name printed in bold letters at the top. My will, outdated and simple, leaving everything to Kelly because that was what mothers did. I laid them all out like pieces of a puzzle I had been ignoring for too long. For the first time in years, I let myself see what my daughter had become, not what I wished she still was, not the little girl who used to hold my hand crossing the street, but the woman who had just slapped me in front of 250 people because I would not give her my home. I picked up the deed. Then I picked up Judge Graves's card. And I thought, she thought that slap would scare me into surrendering everything. Instead, all she did was deliver me 250 witnesses, a family court judge, and a reason to finally protect myself. The penthouse was still mine. For the first time, I understood it was not just a place with a nice view. It was the line I had drawn in the sand. And this time, I was not moving it for anyone. I did not sleep that night. I sat at my dining table until the sun came up, watching the bay turn from black to gray to pink, the papers still spread out in front of me like evidence I was finally ready to examine. At 8:30 in the morning, I called the number on Judge Graves's card. A woman answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm, professional, the kind that made you feel like your problem was already being handled even though you had not explained it yet. Judge Graves's chambers. This is Teresa speaking. My name is Margaret Langley, I said, my voice sounding steadier than I felt. Judge Graves gave me this number last night. She said you could help me find the right resources. There was a pause. I heard the soft click of a keyboard. Yes, Mrs. Langley, the judge left a note for me this morning. She said you might call. I am going to connect you with someone who specializes in these kinds of cases. His name is Richard Calloway. He has been practicing elder law for 20 years. Can I give him your number and have him call you back within the hour? Yes, I said. Please. Richard Calloway called 40 minutes later. His voice was warm, grandfatherly, but there was steel underneath it. the voice of someone who had seen too many families tear each other apart over money and property. "Mrs. Langley," he said, "Judge Graves filled me in on the basics. I want you to know that what happened to you last night was not acceptable, and more importantly, it does not have to happen again." We met in his office that afternoon. It was a small space in a building downtown, the walls lined with law books and framed certificates. He offered me coffee. I accepted, even though my hands were already shaking. He asked me to tell him everything, so I did. I told him about the years of financial help, the car, the credit cards, the rent, the wedding I had paid for, the dinner where Kelly first asked for the penthouse, the ambush in the conference room, the slap. He listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad, his expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he set his pen down and leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Langley, what you are describing is a pattern of financial exploitation," he said. "Your daughter has been conditioning you for years to see your assets as hers. The wedding incident escalated it, but this has been building for a long time. I just want to protect what is mine," I said quietly. "I do not want to hurt her. I just want her to stop." "I understand," he said. "But you need to be aware of something. People who behave this way do not usually stop on their own, especially when they realize you are setting boundaries. They escalate, they try new tactics, and one of the most common tactics is attempting to gain legal control over your finances and medical decisions." My stomach dropped. "You mean guardianship?" "Exactly," he said. "It is not uncommon for adult children to file guardianship petitions claiming their parent is mentally incompetent or being manipulated by outsiders. They paint themselves as concerned family members trying to protect a vulnerable elder. And if the court believes them, they can take control of everything. Your home, your bank accounts, your medical care, all of it." I felt cold. Can they really do that? "If we do not take steps now to prevent it, yes," he said. "But we are going to make sure that does not happen." He pulled out a stack of documents and walked me through each one. First, we updated my will. The old version left everything to Kelly in simple, trusting language. The new one was specific. It outlined exactly what would happen to my assets, including provisions that would fund elder advocacy programs and, if I chose, a trust for any grandchildren that Kelly could not touch. Second, we created advanced directives for healthcare. Clear, legally binding documents that said no one could make medical decisions for me unless I was truly incapable, and even then, a neutral third party would be appointed, not family. Third, we moved the deed to my penthouse into a safe deposit box at a different bank, one Kelly did not know about. He also helped me add additional security to my financial accounts, requiring in-person verification for any major changes. "No one can sign anything on your behalf now," he said. "No one can claim you verbally agreed to transfer property. Everything has to go through proper legal channels, and I will be copied on any correspondence." I signed each document with a sense of relief I had not felt in years. "What else should I do?" I asked. "Cut off the financial access," he said bluntly. "No more emergency transfers, no more bailouts. If they ask, you say no. If they show up demanding help, you say no. You have spent years teaching them that persistence pays off. Now you teach them that boundaries are real." That afternoon, I went to my bank and closed the ability for anyone to request transfers from my account. I changed my passwords. I updated my contact information. Then I went home and called a locksmith. By 5 o'clock, my penthouse had new locks. I kept one key for myself and gave a spare to my neighbor across the hall, a retired teacher named Helen who had always been kind and never asked me for anything. I called the front desk of my building and spoke to the security manager. "My daughter is not allowed up to my unit without my explicit permission," I said. "If she shows up and claims there is an emergency, you call me first. Do not let her up." The manager hesitated. "Are you sure, Mrs. Langley? Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine," I said. "I just need this boundary respected." He agreed. For the first time in what felt like forever, I started reaching out to people who had drifted away over the years. Old coworkers from the hospital who used to invite me to dinner before I got too busy bailing Kelly out of her latest crisis. Neighbors from my building who played cards on Thursday nights. Friends who treated me like a person, not a wallet. I joined them for bridge that week. We laughed. We talked about books and grandchildren and trips we wanted to take. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody guilt-tripped me for having boundaries. I felt lighter. 3 days after the wedding, I was standing in my kitchen making dinner when there was a knock at my door. I was not expecting anyone. I walked over, checked the peephole, and felt my stomach drop. Kelly stood in the hallway. Travis was beside her, and behind them, arms crossed and expression hard, was Janice. None of them were smiling. I kept the chain on. The door opened just wide enough for me to see all three of them standing there, and I left it that way, my hand resting on the frame. "Hi, Mom," Kelly said, her voice soft, almost tentative. Like we were in some movie where she was the wounded daughter coming to make peace. "Can we come in? We just want to talk." "Talk out here," I said. Travis shifted uncomfortably. Janice raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Kelly's smile faltered for just a second, then recovered. "Mom, come on. Do not be like this. We are family. Can we please just come inside and have a conversation like adults? You can say what you need to say from there." She took a breath, her hands clasping together in front of her like she was about to deliver a rehearsed speech, which, I realized, she probably was. "I came to apologize," she said, "for what happened at the wedding. I was completely out of line. The stress got to me. Planning a wedding is so much harder than people realize, and I just snapped. I never should have hit you. I am so sorry." The words sounded right. They hit all the correct notes, but her eyes were wrong. Flat. Calculating. "Okay," I said. "Apology noted." "That is it?" Janice cut in. "She comes here to apologize and you are just going to stand there with the door chained like she is a stranger?" "I appreciate the apology," I said, keeping my voice even. "But I am not ready to let anyone in right now." Kelly's face tightened. "Mom, I am trying. I am really trying here. I know I messed up, but you are making this so much harder than it needs to be. Can you please just let us in so we can talk properly?" "We can talk like this." Travis cleared his throat. "Mrs. Langley, we are not here to fight. We just want to make sure you are okay. We were worried about you after the wedding. You left so suddenly." "I am fine," I said. Kelly stepped closer to the door, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. "Mom, we brought some papers for you to look at. Nothing major, just some estate planning stuff. Power of attorney documents, medical directives, that kind of thing. We talked to a lawyer, and he said it would be smart for you to have everything organized, just in case. So if something happens, we can help you without any legal hassles." There it was. Everything Richard Calloway had warned me about, wrapped up in concern and family love. "I already have all of that handled," I said. Kelly blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I have a lawyer. I updated all my documents last week. Everything is in order." The silence that followed was thick and sharp. "You got a lawyer?" Janice said slowly. "Without talking to us?" "I am an adult," I said. "I do not need permission to hire a lawyer." Kelly's expression shifted. The soft, apologetic mask cracked just enough for me to see the anger underneath. "Who told you to do that?" she demanded. "Was it that judge from the wedding? Did she put this idea in your head?" "Nobody put anything in my head," I said. "I made the decision myself." "No, you did not," Kelly snapped. "You have never done anything like this on your own. Someone is influencing you. Someone is turning you against your own family." "Kelly," Travis said quietly, touching her arm. She shook him off. "Do you even hear yourself, Mom?" She continued, her voice rising. "You are acting paranoid. You changed your locks. You told the front desk not to let me up. You hired a lawyer to keep me away from your estate planning. This is not normal behavior." "It is perfectly normal to protect my assets," I said. "From your own daughter?" Kelly's voice cracked, but I could not tell if it was real emotion or performance. "From the person who loves you?" "Mom, we are trying to help you, but you are making it impossible. You are isolated. You are confused. And clearly someone has gotten into your head and convinced you that we are the enemy." "Nobody has gotten into my head." Janice stepped forward, her face hard. Margie, you need to listen. Kelly is right. You are not thinking clearly. This behavior, this paranoia, it is not you. We think you need to see a doctor. Get checked out. Make sure everything is okay up here. She tapped her temple. My blood went cold. There is nothing wrong with me, I said. Then prove it, Kelly said, pulling a folder from her purse. Sign these documents. Let us take you to a doctor we trust. Let us help you before this gets any worse. I am not signing anything, I said, and I am not going to any doctor you pick. If you are concerned about my health, you can talk to my lawyer. His name is Richard Calloway. I will give you his number. We do not need his number, Kelly said, her voice tight. We need you to stop acting like we are trying to hurt you. We are your family, Mom. We love you. But if you are not capable of making good decisions anymore, then we have to step in. We have to protect you from yourself. I am protecting myself just fine. Are you? Janice said. Because from where we are standing, it looks like you are losing it. Changing locks, hiring lawyers, refusing to see your own daughter. Those are signs, Margie. Signs that you need help. I felt my hands start to shake. Not from fear, from rage. I think you should leave now, I said. Kelly leaned closer to the gap in the door. Mom, please, do not shut us out. We can work through this together. Just let us in. Let us help you. No. Mom. I said no. The word came out harder than I intended, but I did not take it back. Kelly stared at me through the gap, her face shifting through a dozen emotions at once. Shock, hurt, fury, and underneath it all, something cold and calculating. Fine, she said finally, stepping back. If that is how you want it, but do not say we did not try. Do not say we did not give you every chance to do this the easy way. She turned and walked toward the elevator, Travis trailing behind her like a shadow. Janice lingered for a moment, giving me a look that was pure venom. You are going to regret this, she said quietly. You are going to look back on this moment and wish you had listened. Then she left too. I closed the door, locked it, put the chain back in place. Then I leaned against it, my whole body shaking, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. I pulled out my phone and called Richard Calloway. They just came to my door, I said when he answered. They tried to get me to sign power of attorney documents. They said I was confused and paranoid and that I needed help. Did you sign anything? He asked immediately. No. I told them I had a lawyer and sent them away. Good, he said. That was exactly right. But Margaret, I need you to understand something. This is not over. They are going to escalate. Be prepared for that. How? I asked, but I was afraid I already knew. They will try to make their case to someone with authority, a doctor, a social worker, someone who can petition the court on their behalf, keep a record of everything. Any contact they make, any message they leave, document it all. I promised I would. For the next week, I heard nothing. No calls, no texts, no knocks at the door. The silence felt worse than the confrontation. Then, on a Tuesday morning while I was reading the newspaper and drinking coffee, there was a knock. I checked the peephole. A woman I did not recognize stood in the hallway. She was young, maybe 30, wearing a blazer and holding a clipboard. She had a polite, professional smile. I opened the door, keeping the chain on again. Can I help you? Mrs. Langley, she said. My name is Amanda Price. I am a social worker with Elder Services. I was hoping I could speak with you for a few minutes. There has been a report filed that you may be having difficulty managing your affairs, and I am here to do a wellness check. My stomach dropped. A report from who? I asked, though I already knew. She glanced down at her clipboard. I am not at liberty to say, but I assure you this is just a routine check. May I come in? I removed the chain and opened the door fully. If there was one thing I knew from 40 years of nursing, it was that trying to hide from an official visit only made you look guilty. Of course, I said. Please come in. Amanda Price stepped inside, her eyes scanning the penthouse with the practiced efficiency of someone trained to spot red flags. I watched her take in the clean floors, the organized bookshelves, the lack of clutter. Her expression stayed neutral, but I saw the slight surprise in her eyes. Whatever she had been told to expect, this was not it. "Can I offer you some water? Coffee?" I asked. "Water would be lovely, thank you." I poured her a glass from the filtered pitcher in my refrigerator, my hands steady. I gestured toward the dining table, and we both sat down. She clicked her pen and positioned her clipboard. "Mrs. Langley, as I mentioned, we received a report expressing concern about your well-being. I want to assure you, this is not an investigation. This is simply a conversation to make sure you have the support you need. Can you tell me a little about yourself?" "I am 68 years old," I said. "I worked as a registered nurse at Tampa General for 40 years before I retired 3 years ago. I live alone. I manage my own finances, my own medications, my own household. I have a lawyer, Richard Calloway, who helps me with estate planning." She wrote everything down. "And do you have family in the area?" "I have a daughter, Kelly. And a sister, Janice." "How often do you see them?" "Not as often as I used to," I said carefully. "We had a disagreement recently." "Can you tell me about that disagreement?" I debated how much to say. Then I decided honesty was my only real defense. "My daughter asked me to give her my penthouse as a wedding gift," I said. "I said no." She became upset. "Since then, there has been tension." Amanda nodded, still writing. "And the report we received mentioned concerns about confusion, isolation, and possible outside influence. Can you speak to that?" "I am not confused," I said. "I pay my bills on time. I manage my medications without assistance. I have a social life with neighbors and friends from my building. As for outside influence, I hired a lawyer to protect my assets after my daughter tried to pressure me into signing over my property. That is not confusion. That is common sense." Something shifted in her expression. The professional mask slipped just a little, and I saw doubt creep in. "The report described you as volatile and potentially unable to make sound decisions," she said slowly. "But I have to say, Mrs. Langley, you seem perfectly lucid to me." "That is because I am," I said. "Whoever filed that report is not concerned about my well-being. They are concerned about my property." She set her pen down. "Off the record, Mrs. Langley, I see this more often than you would think. Family members file wellness reports hoping we will recommend intervention, and then they use that as leverage in court. But I am not going to recommend anything here. You are clearly competent. Your home is well maintained. You have support systems in place. I will file my report accordingly." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you. But," she added, her voice gentle, "you should know that my report might not stop them. If they are determined, they will find another way." She left 20 minutes later, and I called Richard immediately. "She believed me," I told him. "She said I was clearly competent, and that she would file a report saying so." "That is good," he said. "But Margaret, brace yourself. If they went through the trouble of calling in a social worker, they are not going to stop there." He was right. 4 days later, a courier knocked on my door with an envelope, official, legal. The return address was from the Hillsborough County Courthouse. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a petition for emergency guardianship. Kelly Marie Foster and Travis James Foster, petitioners, were seeking to be appointed as my legal guardians, citing mental decline, vulnerability to exploitation, and the influence of outside parties seeking to control my assets for their own gain. I read it 3 times, each word sinking in like a stone. They were trying to take everything. I called Richard. He told me to bring the papers to his office immediately. An hour later, I sat across from him while he read through the petition, his jaw tightening with each page. "This is a work of fiction," he said finally, tossing the papers onto his desk. "They are claiming you have demonstrated memory loss, erratic behavior, and an inability to manage daily tasks. They say you have been manipulated by strangers who have isolated you from your family and are attempting to control your finances." "None of that is true," I said. "I know," he said. "But they have supporting statements. Look." He flipped to the back pages, pointing to a list of names. Janice Carpenter, sister of the respondent, stating that Margaret has become increasingly paranoid and hostile toward family. Dr. Alan Whitmore, Pharmacist, stating concerns about Margaret's ability to manage her medications properly. Paul Henderson, neighbor, stating that Margaret has exhibited unstable behavior, including installing surveillance equipment and meeting with unknown individuals at odd hours. I stared at the names. Paul Henderson barely knows me. We have said hello maybe twice in the hallway. And the pharmacist? I have never had a problem with my medications. They are building a narrative, Richard said. They are taking small pieces of truth and twisting them. You did change your locks and add security, which they are calling paranoia. You did meet with me and Judge Graves, who they are calling unknown manipulators. They are reframing every reasonable action you took to protect yourself as evidence of incompetence. Can they win? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. If we do nothing? Maybe. The courts take these petitions seriously, especially when there are multiple supporting statements. But we are not going to do nothing. He pulled out a blank legal pad and uncapped his pen. Here is what we are going to do, he said. We are going to gather our own evidence. We are going to prove that you are fully competent, that their claims are fabricated, and that their real motivation is financial. We are going to show the court exactly who your daughter is and what she is trying to do. How? We start with the people on their list, he said, the pharmacist and the neighbor. We talk to them. We find out exactly what they were told and what they actually said. Then we build our own witness list. Your former co-workers, your doctor, your neighbors who actually know you, Judge Graves, if she is willing. You think she would testify? She witnessed the assault, he said. She saw your daughter publicly demand your property and physically attack you when you refused. That is powerful testimony. He started making notes, his pen moving quickly across the page. We also need a competency evaluation from a neutral expert, he continued. Someone who can assess your mental state and confirm that you are fully capable of managing your own affairs. And we need documentation. Bank statements showing you pay your bills on time, medical records showing you manage your health, anything that proves you are not the person they are describing in this petition. I felt overwhelmed. This is really happening. They are really trying to take everything from me. Richard looked up, his expression softening. Yes. But they are not going to succeed, because unlike them, we have the truth on our side, and we are going to make sure the court sees it. Over the next 2 weeks, we worked. Richard contacted the pharmacist, who admitted that Kelly had asked him to sign a vague statement about medication management for what she claimed was a health insurance review. He had no actual concerns about me. He agreed to write a corrected statement. The neighbor, Paul Henderson, refused to recant. But when Richard pressed him on specifics, the best he could offer was that he had seen me install a security camera and that Kelly had told him I was becoming unstable. It was clear he had no first-hand knowledge of anything. We gathered our own witnesses. My former supervisor from Tampa General who could speak to my competence and professionalism. The president of my condo association who confirmed I attended meetings and paid my fees without issue. 3 friends from my bridge group who saw me every week and knew I was sharp, engaged, and independent. And Judge Graves agreed to testify. What happened at that wedding was not a family squabble, she told Richard during a phone call I was present for. It was financial abuse in real time. I will tell the court exactly what I saw. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. The night before, I could not sleep. I stood at my balcony doors, looking out at the bay, the water dark and endless under the night sky. Tomorrow, I would walk into a courtroom and fight for my freedom. Tomorrow, I would find out if telling the truth was enough. Or if my daughter's lies were more convincing. I woke up the morning of the hearing to gray light filtering through my bedroom curtains. I had managed maybe 2 hours of sleep, my mind cycling through every possible thing that could go wrong. I showered, dressed in a navy suit I had not worn since my retirement party, and tried to eat breakfast. The toast sat untouched on my plate. Coffee was the only thing I could stomach. Richard had told me to meet him at the courthouse at 8:30. The hearing was scheduled for 9. I arrived early. The Hillsborough County Courthouse loomed in front of me, all concrete and glass and authority. I had driven past this building 1,000 times in my life and never imagined I would walk through those doors as a defendant in my own competency hearing. Richard met me at the entrance, his briefcase in one hand and a reassuring expression on his face that I suspected was at least partly for my benefit. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "Terrified," I admitted. "Good," he said. "That means you understand what is at stake. But Margaret, I need you to trust me today. We have done everything right. We have the evidence. We have the witnesses. The truth is on our side." We walked through security, my purse scanned, my keys dropped into a plastic bin. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching myself from a distance. Richard led me to a small conference room on the 3rd floor, where our witnesses were gathering. My former supervisor, Catherine, arrived first. She hugged me tightly. "I cannot believe Kelly is doing this to you," she whispered. "After everything you did for that girl." Helen, the president of my condo association, showed up next with printouts of my payment history and meeting attendance records. "You are the most responsible person in that building," she said firmly. "I will make sure that judge knows it." My bridge partners came together, 3 women I had known for years, all of them looking furious on my behalf. "We will tell them exactly how sharp you are," Dorothy said. "Last week you remembered every card played in 3 different hands. If that is dementia, I want some." Judge Graves arrived last, dressed in a charcoal suit, her expression serious. She nodded at me and then spoke quietly with Richard in the corner. I could not hear what they were saying, but I saw her hand him a folder. Documents, I assumed. Evidence. At 8:45, Richard checked his watch. "The other side should be here by now," he said. "Let's go see." We walked down the hallway toward the courtroom, and that is when I saw them. Kelly stood near the water fountain, wearing a pale blue dress and pearls, her hair perfectly styled. She looked like someone's idea of a concerned daughter, wholesome, worried, loving. Travis hovered beside her in a dark suit, his hands in his pockets, his face uncertain. Janice leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching the hallway like a sentry. Their lawyer, a tall man with silver hair and an expensive watch, was going over paperwork with them, his voice too low for me to hear. Kelly looked up and saw me. For just a second, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or doubt. But it was gone so fast I might have imagined it. She turned back to her lawyer and said something that made him nod. Richard touched my elbow. "Do not engage. We say nothing to them until we are in front of the judge." I followed him into the courtroom. It was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, rows of benches, the judge's bench at the front, elevated and imposing. An American flag stood in the corner. We took our seats at the table on the left. Kelly, Travis, Janice, and their lawyer took the table on the right. The room filled slowly. Our witnesses sat behind us. A court reporter set up her machine. A bailiff stood near the door. At exactly 9 o'clock, the bailiff called out, "All rise." Everyone stood. The judge entered. Not Judge Graves, of course. She was here as a witness. This was Judge Thomas Harrington, a man in his 60s with gray hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. I had looked him up. 30 years on the bench, family court specialist, a reputation for being fair but tough. He sat down. We all sat down. "This is a hearing regarding the petition for emergency guardianship filed by Kelly Foster and Travis Foster concerning Margaret Langley," he said, his voice deep and measured. "I have reviewed the submitted documents from both parties. We will hear testimony today, and I will make a determination based on the evidence presented. Counsel for the petitioners, you may begin." Kelly's lawyer stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. "Thank you, Your Honor. We will show that Mrs. Langley is a beloved mother and a woman who dedicated her life to service. But unfortunately, in recent months, she has experienced a decline that has left her vulnerable to manipulation and unable to make sound decisions regarding her welfare and her estate. We believe guardianship is necessary, not as punishment, but as protection." He gestured toward Kelly. "My clients love their mother. They are here today not because they want control, but because they want to ensure she is safe." I felt my jaw clench. Richard's hand appeared on my arm, steadying me. The petitioners will present testimony from family members and community witnesses who have observed concerning behavior, the lawyer continued. Isolation, paranoia, uncharacteristic hostility toward loved ones, influence from parties with potential financial motives. All of these are consistent with someone who is no longer able to manage their own affairs. He sat down. Judge Harrington turned to Richard. Counsel for the respondent? Richard stood, his voice calm and strong. Your Honor, what you are about to hear is not a story of decline. It is a story of exploitation. Mrs. Langley is a competent, intelligent woman who had the courage to set boundaries with family members who have treated her as a source of funding for years. When she finally said no, they retaliated by filing this petition. We will show that every claim made by the petitioners is either exaggerated, taken out of context, or outright false. And we will show that their real motivation is not care. It is control of an $840,000 property. He sat down. The judge made a note on the paper in front of him. We will hear from the petitioners first, he said. Call your first witness. Kelly's lawyer stood. We call Kelly Foster to the stand. My daughter walked to the witness box, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Then she looked at the judge with tears in her eyes and began to lie. Kelly dabbed at her eyes with a tissue before her lawyer even asked the first question. The performance had already begun. Miss Foster, her lawyer said gently, can you describe your relationship with your mother? She is everything to me, Kelly said, her voice breaking slightly. Growing up, it was just the three of us. Me, Mom, and Dad. She worked so hard to give me a good life. She sacrificed so much. I have always looked up to her. I watched her from my seat, this stranger in my daughter's body, spinning a story that sounded so close to the truth it was almost believable. And when did you first become concerned about her well-being? Kelly took a shaky breath. About 6 months ago. She started pulling away. She stopped returning my calls as quickly. When I would visit, she seemed distracted, suspicious. She started asking me strange questions about my finances, about Travis, like she thought we were trying to take advantage of her. Were you trying to take advantage of her? Of course not, Kelly said, looking genuinely offended. I love my mother. I just wanted to spend time with her, but she kept pushing me away. Then she changed her locks without telling me. She told the building security not to let me up without permission. My own mother, treating me like a threat. Her lawyer nodded sympathetically. Did you notice any other changes? She became obsessed with this idea that people were after her money. Kelly continued. She installed cameras. She started meeting with people I had never seen before. Lawyers, she said, but she would not tell me why she needed lawyers. When I tried to help, when I suggested maybe she should talk to a doctor just to make sure everything was okay, she accused me of trying to control her. And what happened at your wedding? Kelly's face crumpled. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I just wanted her to feel included, she whispered. I asked her to give a speech, something simple, just to share a memory or a blessing. But when she got up there, she started acting strange, confused. She could not seem to remember what she wanted to say. And when I tried to help her, when I tried to gently guide her, she got angry. She started accusing me in front of everyone. It was humiliating and heartbreaking. I felt Richard tense beside me. I knew what he was thinking. This was not what happened, but proving it was another matter entirely. Did you strike your mother at the wedding? The lawyer asked. Kelly hesitated, then nodded. Yes, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. But Your Honor, I was watching my mother, this woman who raised me, falling apart in front of hundreds of people, and I just panicked. I did not know what to do. I reached out to steady her and she pulled away and I reacted badly. It was the worst moment of my life. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. Judge Harrington's expression remained neutral, but he was taking notes. Miss Foster, in your opinion, is your mother capable of managing her own affairs at this time? Kelly looked up, her eyes red. I do not think so. I think she is being influenced by people who see her as vulnerable, people who want access to her assets. She has cut off her family, the people who actually love her, and surrounded herself with strangers. That is not the woman who raised me. Something is very wrong." "Thank you," her lawyer said. "No further questions." Richard stood. "I have questions, Your Honor." "Proceed," the judge said. Richard approached the witness stand, his expression calm but his eyes sharp. "Miss Foster, you testified that you love your mother and only want what is best for her. Is that correct?" "Yes," Kelly said. "And yet, 3 months before your wedding, you asked her to give you her penthouse. Is that correct?" Kelly's face flushed. "I asked if she would consider downsizing. She is alone in a very large space. I thought it might be easier for her to have something smaller, more manageable. And when she said no, you became angry." "I was hurt," Kelly corrected. "I thought we could help each other." "Help each other," Richard repeated, "by you taking an asset worth $840,000. That is not what I said." "But it is what you meant," Richard said. "In fact, you showed up at her wedding with a plan to force her into announcing this gift publicly, did you not?" Kelly's lawyer stood. "Objection. Leading." "Sustained," the judge said. Richard shifted tactics. "How much money has your mother given you over the past 10 years? Kelly blinked. "I do not know exactly." "Would it surprise you to learn it is over $150,000, car payments, credit cards, rent, wedding expenses?" "My mother wanted to help me," Kelly said defensively. "And when she finally said she could not help anymore, you filed for guardianship." "Convenient timing." "That is not why we filed," Kelly snapped, her composure cracking. "We filed because she is not well." Richard let the words hang in the air for a moment. "No further questions," he said. Kelly stepped down, her face blotchy, her hands shaking. Next came Janice. She took the stand with confidence, her chin high, her voice clear. "Mrs. Langley has always been stubborn," Janice testified. "Even as kids, she had to do everything her way. But lately it has gotten worse. She refuses to listen to reason. She accuses us of things we never did. She is paranoid, isolated, and frankly, I think she is losing her grip on reality." "Can you give an example?" the lawyer asked. "She thinks we are after her money," Janice said. "She thinks everyone is after her money. She installed cameras like she is under surveillance. She hired lawyers to keep her own family away from her. That is not rational behavior." Richard cross-examined her briefly, getting her to admit she had not actually visited Margaret in over a year before the wedding and that most of her information came from Kelly. Then came Paul Henderson, the neighbor. He testified about seeing me install a security camera outside my door, about hearing raised voices in the hallway once, about strangers visiting at odd hours. Richard got him to admit he did not actually know who the visitors were or what the raised voices were about, that he had never had a conversation with me longer than 30 seconds. The opposing lawyer stood for his closing argument to this portion of the hearing. "Your Honor, what we have shown here is a pattern. A woman isolating herself from family, displaying paranoid behavior, making sudden, uncharacteristic decisions under the influence of outside parties. These are textbook signs of diminished capacity. My clients are not asking for control. They are asking for protection. For their mother. Before it is too late." He paused, then reached for a laptop on the table. "And, Your Honor, we have one more piece of evidence. Documented proof of what happened at the wedding. Video footage that shows exactly what Mrs. Langley's state of mind was that night." My heart stopped. He opened the laptop and turned it toward the large monitor mounted on the courtroom wall. "If I may, Your Honor, I would like to play this for the court." Judge Harrington nodded. "Proceed." The screen flickered to life. And there I was, standing on the stage at Kelly's wedding, the microphone in my hand, 250 people watching. The video played. The courtroom was silent except for the tinny audio coming from the speakers. I watched myself on that screen, standing at the microphone, my voice steady as I wished Kelly and Travis a long and kind life together. Then Kelly's voice cut in, loud and insistent. "And my mom has a very special announcement for us. Right, Mom?" The camera caught everything. The way Kelly leaned forward in her seat, confident, expectant. The way the crowd shifted, phones lifting. The way I stepped back from the microphone. "No, I do not." Kelly's face on the screen twisted. She stood up, her voice rising. "Mom, stop being shy. Just tell them." "There is nothing else to tell." Then came the slap. The sound echoed through the courtroom just like it had echoed through that ballroom, my head snapping to the side, the shocked gasps, the terrible laughter. And then Kelly's voice, venomous and clear. "You selfish old woman. You would rather hoard your fancy condo than help your own daughter start a family. Everybody, this is what I am dealing with. This is who raised me." The video kept playing, Kelly ranting into the microphone, me setting it down calmly, walking away while she stood there breathing hard, her hands still raised. Judge Harrington reached forward and paused the video. The frozen image on the screen showed Kelly mid-sentence, her face contorted with rage, while I walked away in the background, my cheek red, my spine straight. The judge looked at Kelly's lawyer. "Counselor, what exactly am I supposed to be seeing here that supports your client's petition?" The lawyer cleared his throat. "Your Honor, you can see Mrs. Langley's confusion, her inability to complete a simple task, the distress it caused." "What I see," the judge said slowly, "is a daughter publicly demanding her mother announce a gift of property worth nearly $1 million. I see the mother declining. And I see the daughter striking her mother in front of witnesses when she did not get what she wanted." He turned to Kelly. "Miss Foster, you testified that you reached out to steady your mother and accidentally made contact. This video shows something very different." Kelly's face went white. "Your Honor, I was upset. I made a mistake." "You made several," he said. "Sit down." Richard stood. "Your Honor, the defense calls Judge Linda Graves." Judge Graves took the stand, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. She settled into the witness chair with the bearing of someone who had sat in courtrooms for decades, on both sides of the bench. Richard approached. "Judge Graves, can you explain how you came to be at the wedding?" "I was there as a guest of Dr. Patterson, the chief of staff at Tampa General Hospital. Mrs. Langley and I had never met, but I was familiar with her by reputation." "And what did you witness that evening?" Judge Graves looked directly at the judge. "I witnessed a daughter physically assault her mother in front of 250 people after the mother refused to give up a valuable asset. I have spent 20 years in family court specializing in elder cases. What I saw was not a confused woman being helped. It was financial abuse in real time." The courtroom was utterly silent. "In your professional opinion, did Mrs. Langley appear confused or incompetent?" "Absolutely not," Judge Graves said firmly. "She appeared calm, rational, and in full control of her faculties. She set a boundary and maintained it even under extreme pressure. That is not incompetence. That is strength." "Thank you," Richard said. "No further questions." Kelly's lawyer stood for cross-examination but seemed to think better of it. "No questions, Your Honor," Richard continued. He called Catherine, my former supervisor, who testified about my 40 years of competent professional work. He called Helen from the condo association, who brought documentation showing I had never missed a payment or meeting. He entered the corrected statement from the pharmacist, who clarified that he had no concerns about my medication management and had been misled about the nature of the document he signed. Then came the expert witness, a geriatric psychiatrist who had evaluated me 2 weeks earlier. "In my professional opinion," she testified, "Mrs. Langley shows no signs of dementia, cognitive decline, or diminished capacity. She is articulate, organized, financially literate, and fully capable of managing her own affairs. Any suggestion otherwise is not supported by medical evidence." Richard rested his case. Judge Harrington reviewed his notes for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 5 minutes. Then he looked up. "I have heard enough," he said. "The petition for guardianship is denied." Kelly let out a small gasp. Travis put his head in his hands. The judge continued, his voice hard. "What I have seen today is not a family trying to protect a vulnerable elder. What I have seen is a transparent attempt to gain control of valuable assets through legal manipulation. Miss Foster, Mr. Foster, you should be ashamed. And you should know that if there are any further attempts to control Mrs. Langley's property or affairs, I will not hesitate to refer this matter for criminal investigation." He looked at me. Mrs. Langley, you are free to go. Your property remains yours. Your decisions remain yours. I suggest you keep your lawyer's number handy." He banged his gavel. It was over. Richard squeezed my shoulder. Behind me, Catherine was crying. Judge Graves nodded at me with something that looked like respect. I stood on shaking legs and walked out of that courtroom, a free woman. In the hallway, Kelly caught up to me. "Mom, please," she said, her voice desperate now. "Can we just talk? I made mistakes. I know I did. But we are still family. That has to count for something." I turned to face her. "You stopped being family the night you slapped me for refusing to give you my home," I said quietly. "You are my daughter. I will always love the little girl you used to be. But I am done being treated like a bank account with a heartbeat." I walked away. She did not follow. 2 weeks later, I sat in Richard's office and signed a new will. The penthouse would be sold after my death, and the proceeds would fund a grant program for elder advocacy services, legal help for people like me who needed protection from their own families. If Kelly ever had children, if those grandchildren existed someday and wanted a relationship with me, there would be a trust for their education, money they could access at 18, money Kelly could never touch. Richard slid the documents into a folder. "How do you feel?" "Free," I said. And I meant it. I still live in my penthouse. I still have coffee on my balcony every morning, watching the bay turn colors with the sunrise. I play bridge on Thursdays. I have dinner with friends who ask how I am doing and actually want to know the answer. Kelly does not call. I do not call her. Some relationships cannot be salvaged. Some people cannot see you as anything but a resource, and that is not a failure on your part. That is a choice they made. The slap hurt. The betrayal hurt worse. But the real turning point, the moment everything changed, was not the violence. It was the fact that someone with power saw it happen and called it what it was. Kelly thought one public humiliation would force me into submission. She forgot that 250 people were watching, including a judge who spends her life defending women like me. I kept my home. I kept my name. I kept my peace. The only thing I lost was the illusion that I ever owed her my life. And honestly, that was worth every single battle. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever felt used by someone you loved, if you have ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping yourself, drop a comment and let me know. You are not alone. And you are not selfish for protecting what is yours. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not already. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is not giving them what they want. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well.